I'm pleased to introduce our speaker today. It's Nancy Redden from San Leandro, California. She is the recording secretary for the San Francisco Bay Area Postcard Club, is a member of the San Jose Club, and she's a member of the Wichita Club as well, and maybe some others that I don't know about. We're happy to have her there in her home today to tell us about Weeki Wachee Park in Florida. And I've learned a little bit that it's one of the oldest roadside attractions in the Sunshine State. It's a great attraction, and the good part is that many postcards, different ones, were published, and she's going to show us quite a few of them. Please help me welcome Nancy Redden today, and she'll be telling us about a postcard journey to Weeki Wachee Spring of Live Mermaids. Take it away, Nancy. Thank
Okay,
you.
here I go. Okay, Weeki Wachee Springs. So I live in San Leandro, which borders Oakland, and in the San Francisco Bay Area. And I have been interested in postcards for so many years. And I ran across this one in my collection, and I became very curious about what it is. And I started going to postcard shows, and I met a wonderful seller named Arlen Spangola, who I was able to get over 30 cards of Weeki Wachee from him. And that's what started it all. And then I started studying up on what it is. There is so many postcards of Weeki Wachee. I currently have 296 Weeki Wachee cards. I have 19 real photos, 5 linens. There's very few linens out there. 232 standard chromes, and 40 continentals. And that's my collection now. And I want to share with you that there was all kinds of publishers for these cards. There was Dexter, Kurt Tyke, Plastichrome. And so it was just a very easy collection to obtain, as well as was mentioned before. So without further ado, let's go to the next card. This is one of the very first underwater cards with women posing that was ever made. And it's in color. Okay, so Weeki Wachee, where is it? It's in Florida. It's on the Gulf of Mexico. And here we have it here. Up here is Silver Springs. And down here is Cypress Gardens, just for a little orientation about it. It's about 40 miles from Tampa. In the beginning, it was only inhabited by mostly black bears and alligators. There was more of those than there was people. But the Seminole Indians are the ones who named it Weeki Wachee Springs, which meant little spring or winding river. It was very, very cold, 74 degrees. The water was clear as could be, and it was very magical even back then. They called it a watery dreamscape. The spring itself is about 100 feet wide, and it's surrounded by limestone. And there's about 117 million gallons of water bubbles up out of the spring. This is the very first building that was built there in 1935, and it actually burned down before World War II. Newt Perry. Newt Perry is considered the founder of Weeki Wachee. He taught Navy frogmen for World War II. He was a Navy dive instructor. And what he did is he created, or he invented, the air hose, which is compressed air that comes through a hose which you can breathe in underneath water. And he also created an airlock system where you could actually swim inside of a little container and breathe. And when he found Weeki Wachee, Springs, he thought that he thought it was the most beautiful place he'd ever seen. This is another view of an airlock with a mermaid. And what he did is he got local high school girls and he taught them how to breathe through the air holes, through the air compressor tube. He was a very wonderful, low-keyed instructor, and everybody really liked him and learned from him quite well. And here he is with his local high school girls, and everybody wanted to become a mermaid. What they called them at the beginning was aquabelles. And then the next step was they created a theater, but they also went out on the road and was with a sign and said, "Come to Weeki Wachee." And that's how they started. And the first theater opened in October of 1947. You can see it here. This is a linen card. And there's the people on the boat ride looking at it. Here's some mermaids standing on top of it. And what it was is an 18-seater that reminded people of a boxcar with windows. So 18 people got to go underneath and watch the show. And the show was really just 2 or 3 young girls that jumped into the freezing cold water, but they loved it and smiled all the way and did simple things like eating and drinking. They drank a beverage called Grapette, which was actually made in Arkansas, and it didn't have as many bubbles. And so that's why it worked quite well with the air hoses. So you see the people watching the mermaids, waving at them, taking pictures of them. And they had a lovely beach where the people came. Later on, they had an orchid. They had an orchid garden as well. They had a motor lodge where you could stay. This is one of just the few real photos I have. There's a lot of lovely real photo cards of Weeki Wachee out there. And then there's the river. They had boat rides on the river. They had a lot of things going besides the mermaids, but the mermaids were really the big hit. That's what brought in the people. These are all very early 1950s cards. And they also had a cafeteria. And what's so great about this card is if you look on the tables, there's lamps, and the lampshades, each lampshade has a different mermaid on it. Then in 1959, American Broadcasting bought the Weeki Wachee Springs and put in a new theater, as you can see. And it was like it had like a clamshell roof, and everybody was thrilled. And 400 people could be in it to watch the shows, and the shows became more elaborate, and they had piped in music so that not only the people, the audience, but also the mermaids could hear it too. And another thing about the mermaids is they were also, oh, here's the back of one of the postcards after ABC had it. This is by Copal Colored Cards in New Jersey. Is Hollywood and advertising agencies all would ask the mermaids to come and work for them and do things because they were such great athletes. They were fabulous athletes. And they put up a water slide in the 1980s. And then here we have the mermaids. The mermaids, at first they were recruited from the local girls, but later it became a much more sophisticated thing to become a mermaid. And there was a lot of hoops that the women had to jump through. Now there were mermen, and they used the mermen a lot to put in props and stuff, kind of a lot of the other kind of work that they did there. They weren't as involved in the shows as the women were, but these women were fantastic athletes. And it was very difficult to become one of them. And they also, of course, noted had to swim in 74-degree water. I do want to add that the spring itself, as of late, has been recorded as 407 feet deep, which is the deepest clear water spring in the United States. And where the mermaids swim, it's surrounded by limestone. And there's also a 5-mile-per-hour current where they swim. So they must learn to breathe through the air compressor, through the tube, and their buoyancy depends on their breathing, whether they're up or down, or all the different theatrics that they go through has to do with their movements in the water as well. And here's one posing. The cards are so beautiful. They're multicolored, they're animated, and many of these mermaids are still alive today. And some of them even get a chance to go back and swim in the spring. And so there was a lot of theatrics when ABC owned it. They had Alice in Waterland and Butterfly Mermaids, the Butterfly Ballet. And this happened all while ABC owned them. Okay, and so what I'm going to show you next is a little film that I made. And I'm going to start this, and I'm going to adjust the volume. It's about 19 minutes long, and it's got so many of the cards. I thought this is the best way to let you see all the cards, is through a film. And here we go.
Thank you, Nancy. Thank you. Thank you very much. I thought Bette Midler was the only mermaid I knew, but now I know a lot more.
Ah, I didn't know she was a mermaid.
Yeah, she used to be.
Yeah, there
Lots
was
of
a few
fun.
things I didn't say. They used air bubbles like a curtain. Instead of
Oh,
having the big curtain coming down, the bubbles went up when the mermaids came down. And when they came down to give their performances, and they still do today, they go down a 20-foot tube down, straight down, and then they swim out another 60 feet, and then they appear for the
oh,
audience.
oh my
And
gosh.
Weeki Wachee was made one of the smallest cities in America in 1966. And that put them on the map, which is what they really wanted, is to get on the map so people would know about them. And in 2008, the state of Florida took them over. And in 2020, they were put on the National Registry of Historical Sites.
Oh, that's terrific. That's terrific. Nancy, do you think Elvis was really there?
Oh yeah.
Oh, great.
He did Follow That Dream, the movie in Florida. That's where they filmed it. And he
Oh,
visited it many times.
oh,
Yeah.
wonderful.
One of the other big visitors was Connie Mack.
Oh,
Yeah,
baseball.
he went there a lot too. A lot.
Yeah, yeah. I don't think I've ever seen a Weeki Wachee card, but I'm going to be looking for them. Maybe
Yeah.
we can help you add to your collection.
I don't know. Sometimes they want a lot for just a little standard chrome.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
Dennis McBurney has asked, did anyone ever get hurt during these performances that you're aware of?
Well, yes. The mermaids have suffered terrible infections, eye infections, nose, ear, nose, and throat infections. They've gotten out of the water and ran and bundled up in an electric blanket. They've had stakeout people for alligators, but there's been no reports of any attack by creature attacks. But every once in a while an alligator will wander in.
horrible.
Yeah, but and there's also you can become a master swimmer if you go down 117 feet down into the cavern. Very few people have done it, and it's very dangerous.
Oh,
They go down about 20 feet to give their performance.
I see.
Hmm.
Well, that's amazing.
Do
Anybody
they wear
else?
plugs on their noses?
Nope. They learn how to breathe through those hoses, and they learn how to exhale, inhale, all with the compressed air. And it's definitely a real talent.
Amazing. Jeez.
It's just incredible.
Hey Nancy, it's Ashley. I just want to say I'm really impressed by the depth and breadth of your collection. It's fascinating to learn the history of the place and then to see the many, many, many postcards that have been done of it. And particularly the real photo ones were amazing. So I've known a little bit about Weeki Wachee, and I've actually had some postcards pass through my hands. There's a local person who likes them, and so where I sell my postcards locally, they always want me to just give them all the mermaids, and they put them behind the counter for her. But it's before I knew you, or I would have saved them for you. But that's
Well,
really
I can send you a couple of shots of the ones I'm looking for.
will
But
do. You never know.
yeah,
Well,
it's
thank
just
you.
fun to have so many. And there's actually so many things they did that are not on postcards. They used to put up signs, it's daylight savings time, and they'd be under the water with the sign. I mean, they did all kinds of antics
Well, it's wonderful.
back in the day.
Lots of good imagination.
Well, a couple of people have
Nancy,
said, we'll be looking for cards for you, which is very nice of them. But do
Good.
you have any idea how many more cards you don't have, or is that sort of
Well,
a simple question?
there's probably several real photo cards I don't have. I have a real nice collection though. I have a great big thick album, and so I'm very satisfied with what I have. And I do have some contemporary cards, which I really love. A friend of mine lives there, so she mailed me one not too long ago. Um, but like I said, you don't see many linens, so I don't know if I don't have any linens. And the old standard chromes, there's a couple I don't have, but doggone it, one just little old chrome of them standing under an awning, somebody wants like 35 bucks for it. And that's okay. I don't need it for 35 bucks.
No, of
For a
course
little
not.
chrome, with the mermaids standing in their bathing suits under an awning, so I'm really satisfied with what I have. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Yeah. Have you ever thought about a checklist?
No. I have a checklist from some of my other collections but this one actually though, I had pored over it for years. And I kind of I have a Weeki Wachee not file of cards that I've seen that I don't have. Yeah. And once in a while I go after them if I can. Yeah.
Are they still doing it?
Oh, yes, yes. It has not closed since 1947 when it opened. It went through some rough patches when private parties owned it. And I don't want to say anything negative, but yeah, some bad stuff. But anyway, but they're still there, and the mermaids kept it alive. The mermaids that you hear talk about it say it was the most magical and wonderful job they could have ever had. It was just
Alan Milbert suggests, or I asked, how did the feminist movement view the mermaids in those days and today?
I would think they would love them. I'm a feminist and I love them. I mean,
That's a
it's
good
beautiful
habit.
women doing beautiful theatrics underwater. Doesn't get better than that.
Was the creature from the Black Lagoon filmed there?
I do believe it was, or they used some of the mermaids. They definitely mermaids sat in for Esther Williams, and they definitely did Mr. Peabody and the mermaid was
Mhm.
filmed there. So I can't say yes, a strong yes. I knew I should have looked that up more, but it had a lot to do with it.
I was wrong when I attributed that last comment to Alan Milbrand. It was Alan Mann.
From
Sorry,
England.
Alan Mann.
Yeah,
I apologize.
that's all right. Anybody else?
I was going to ask Nancy, did Weeki Wachee influence the development of synchronized swimming as an art, or did that already exist before? It seems like it must have been something that if you were a little girl that saw that, you might have wanted to try it yourself and might have
I
encouraged
have
people
a
to do
couple.
synchro.
Yeah, I have a couple of old postcards of synchronized swimmers. So I would probably say no, because they were on top of the water, whereas the mermaids were underneath the water with the compressed air.
Right, right.
And the synchronized swimmers didn't have air. So, but I've never studied it, so I can't thoroughly answer that question.
Nancy, you said that the ABC owned it. From when to when, and why did they sell it? Do you know?
They bought it in 1959. They also bought Silver Springs. And then they sold it in 1984. I think they were just done, is what I could pretty much say about it without adding any details that I don't remember at the moment. And then some related people bought it at the time. And that's when it took kind of a bad turn, because the new people changed the ticketing. They demolished the Star Garden, which had all the props in it. The props that they weren't using anymore, they put in a garden, and little kids got to take their pictures with the castle and Willy Wiley and stuff, and they bulldozed the whole thing. Probably, I don't know if the Orchid Garden is still there. I didn't check. I was actually almost phoned Weeki Wachee to ask them some questions a couple of days ago. Yeah.
Do you think it was actually thought of maybe as a competitor to the Disneyland
Well, Disneyland didn't help them. Disney World. They didn't help
World,
them. That
sorry.
was another thing that happened because Disney World opened in the 80s or was it the 70s? I don't know. Anyway, but that's when it got, they struggled. They struggled, but the Mermaids kept it going.
So the Mermaids own a part of it, or did they just?
No,
were doing it
they worked
voluntarily?
there. They had instructors. They had a whole protocol of how to become a mermaid there. And yeah, so it just kept going because everybody loved it so much. And the spring itself is just glorious.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And you have a collection of those instruction booklets and all the rest of it?
Those books that I showed in the slide,
Yeah.
it has one of the books has wonderful information in it, and it has letters to the mermaids from Weeki Wachee and stuff saying what they needed to do to become a mermaid, that kind of thing.
Now, one question.
Please.
Has anybody been there besides Nancy? Who's all been there in person? Anybody?
George says he has. And Peter?
I was there about 25 years ago, 1999.
Okay, great.
There's a wonderful, really old article in National Geographic about it with great pictures and stuff. And that's some old magazine from the 50s. Well,
Huh,
I mean, it's an old National Geographic from the 50s that,
sure.
yeah.
Well, they're usually
if you
pretty
go-
available.
If you go onto YouTube, you can see the visit made by Elvis Presley as well.
Okay, well, we thank you so much, Nancy, and we thank you, Bill Burton, for helping us field the questions.